My God, I hate trucks.
Let's talk about corruption first.
It's, again, in many countries, it is a perennial question. Now, with 8 billion pesos in projects being launched over the next 4 to 5 years, up until 2022, and I'll put this to you first of all, Budget Secretary. Transparency, obviously, is the best way to fight this. How are you going to embed transparency into these processes of awarding substantial loans?
Well, that's the instruction of the President. No corruption, right? At the DBM, we are also adopting a new project called Project Time. This is digital imagery monitoring and evaluation system, where we will use the satellite, the drones, to really monitor in real time all existing projects. Okay, so we're going to launch it maybe in a few months.
Does any of the other panelists have anything to say on this point?
Yeah, Mr. Tagad is the most senior here.
Yeah, in terms of transparency, number one, we have changed the processes on bidding and procurement. These are all on live stream. Never before have you heard of bidding on live stream. Before, when we started live streaming processes, we just thought that we live stream the actual bidding. We went beyond that, ma'am. Even procurement now, even pre-bid is on live stream. That accounts for transparency. Number two, it's all in our web page. All the projects, how much, when do we expect to finish, the status, everything, it's all there. It's open and transparent. And then we try to address the issue of bidding and procurement. We ask third parties to come in, to participate in the process, to make sure that it will be transparent. In other words, there are things being done in the processes to make the bidding and procurement process transparent, very accountable. Never has this been done before. It's being done now. Earlier, Mr. Luz raised two issues. The right-of-way. Later on, maybe Mark can handle that, yes, because we have designed a scheme for the right-of-way. And the other is the shortening of processes. No less than the President is very firm and very aggressive in saying all processing procedures must be cut. He imposed timelines of 3 days and 7 days. And to put emphasis on what he wants, only 2 days ago, sir, he signed the anti-red tape into law. Never before has this been done. And he has instructed cabinet members to put in technology all processes within 30 days from signing 2 days ago. This is an indication that the leadership is no nonsense in shortening processing time. And as it shortens processing time, it is no nonsense on transparency and accountability. Sabi ng Presidente, tagalan nyo, tanggalin ko kayo. No.
Okay. Secretary Mark Villar, let's talk about DPWH and geotagging, because for the longest time in the past, diba, the problem was ghost projects. Now you're going to make everything transparent. That's your promise.
Well, our promise is that these ghost projects are a thing of the past, because I'm a strong, and we all are. We're strong believers that we can defeat corruption and inefficiency through technology and analytics. Specifically, in terms of the DPWH, we're already in the last stage of implementation of our construction management software. It's called PCM. It's called PCMA. It was designed with the help of the World Bank, and it utilizes. We've incorporated not only drone technology, also geotag photos. What are geotag photos? These are satellite. These are monitored by satellite. Absolutely cannot be faked. In fact, we have an application for the iPhone that our engineers use. When they take the picture, it's instantly uploaded to our software. So at any point, I have access to the
any of the
system.
projects that are going
any project.
on
You ask me if
okay,
what's happening here in this certain project in this certain province. At the click of a button.
No matter how far.
No matter how
flung,
far.
huh?
Because we have an
Okay.
extensive organization. We have more than 180 district engineering offices. We have more than
Okay.
10,000 engineers, all of them monitoring all these projects. Now, they'll be able to upload that to our central system. They already are. Not
Yeah.
even, they will be.
So
They
no
are.
one can lie to you.
No one can lie to me. Unless they find a way to defeat the satellite software. I can't imagine
Luck.
any way that they can get away with that. So.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to ask Secretary Gary Teves about this. Yeah.
If I might want to clarify something, Pia. Taking note of Secretary Ben's optimism, I was wondering whether, what if a different situation takes place in the second half or the next year in terms of how the inflation rate will taper off or slow down, and whether there are demands that we haven't anticipated now which might crop up, whether there might be some adjustments in the wages either through the present setup, through a regional council. What if these things happen? Would the government still consider perhaps allowing the private sector to take another look at even the approved projects, which the government might have already said that I'm committed to those projects, but putting certain conditions, i.e. time, cost, employment generation, and say, hey, private sector, you can participate because there are other things that we might have to address, which might draw on our resources, and therefore it might be welcome for the private sector to come in and assist the government in this infrastructure endeavor. I'd like to see a situation also, Secretary Pernia, that if these things do not pan out as we are expecting, as conveyed by Secretary Ben, would we still be at pace with our poverty reduction program? I think you did mention through a newspaper account that the GDP would have been a little higher if the inflation rate were a little slower. So this has a bearing on the poverty reduction program. This has a bearing on job generation. So it might be useful to consider a Plan B approach, wherein the private sector will be ready and available to assist the government even in those approved projects, and where the government says, I am committed to it now, but I'm willing to make adjustments provided the private sector will meet these conditions, which will be win-win for all of us.
You said there is an issue of a labour shortage. Do you see the returning workers being able to nullify that, or is this going to be something which lives with the Build project, just the difficulty in finding the number of workers?
Well, if the compensation that they'll be getting will be, close to par with what they're getting, many of those workers would love to come home.
So. What about the ODA, again, programs where you tend to see the donor country sending, apart from sourcing materials, also sending skilled labour and manual labour?
Well, that's the practice of Chinese-funded projects, but not Japanese.
Right.
Japan-funded projects, they have skilled they have technicians, specialized technicians train for subway projects, for example, but not the
unskilled
blue collar type workers.
And they will be welcome in the Philippines. The Chinese blue collar worker will be welcome to help.
Well, that will be a matter of negotiation with China, but with Japan, there's no problem. We can use our own blue collar workers.
Yes, Secretary
Can
Mark.
I just add, we already have existing foreign funded projects, and of course these foreign companies, Chinese, we have Chinese, Korean, Japanese. And of course, certain projects require a certain level of expertise that might not necessarily be available locally. So they bring in experts, but in general, the labor that they utilize is locally based labor. That's how it's been. That's how we expect it to be under the Build program. They share with us their expertise. They might bring some personnel, but in general, the workforces will be comprised of locally sourced labor.
Okay.
Just to add, anecdotally, in the projects that are already ongoing right now, we're actually experiencing a shortage in skilled labor. So when I say skilled, I'm talking about heavy equipment operators and the sort. Clearly, for the semi-skilled and low-skilled laborers, there are a lot there. But just to a point on because I think it's a concern by Andrew, Chinese laborers coming in. I don't think that's going to happen. Because, first of all, Chinese labor already is more expensive. No, so I don't think China it's economically smart for China to bring their workers here. No, but in terms of skilled laborers, those where we actually have a shortage of, then that's where you will most likely have some Japanese, Korean, or maybe even Chinese skilled labor coming in to ensure that the projects are implemented quickly.
Yeah, and well, the other challenge there is the short work visas, work visa periods. But anyway, Andrew, we were going to talk about poverty reduction also, right?
Yeah, one question I have is, obviously poverty reduction is probably at the very top of the agenda for obvious reasons. But when you have these infrastructure projects, they tend to be a sort of, they close around one area. How do you trickle down the benefits of infrastructure into the remote urban, rural areas to make sure that all Filipinos get the benefit of this infrastructure boom?
We also have a lot of rural projects, actually, agriculture-related projects. So they would be open to employing those in rural areas. Yeah, so as I've said, there's so many projects out there that are going to be...
And from the top down, the coordination between the state and the local provinces, how closely you're working with them. Because I know this was a success in China, the development of China. They worked hand in glove. The central authorities sort of spread the love, if you like. Are you adopting that sort of model here?
No, we are not a centralized type of...
But what I mean is that the central government managed to involve the local authorities, local provinces at every stage of China's sort of restructuring.
Local governments will be involved too.
Right.
Local government, provincial governments, local governments would be involved in those local projects.
Okay.
Yeah. And by the way, in our build program, we are on a 24/7 work mode, meaning 3 shifts. So that's why it's going to employ more people as well as speed up the completion of projects faster.
Speed. Okay. Well, multiplier effect. And I want to bring the private sector panelists in here: Ed Francisco, Romulo Biluz, and Gary Teves. Are you seeing increased or broader economic activity because of build right now? This early in the game, 2 years into the Duterte administration?
I can share also anecdotal evidence also. Our loan books have grown significantly, and it's because of the multiplier effects. When the government announces new roads, if Mark is going to build a new road, what we're seeing is the customers are already buying the land, they're already buying the vans for the deliveries. Some of the businesses are building hotels. So in anticipation of the infrastructure that our team here is doing, the private sector is borrowing. So we've seen that in the loan growth, and that's why we're having 6-7% GDP growth, but our loans are growing at around 18%. It's because the local Filipinos believe in this government also, in fairness.
May I share as well?
Yes.
With the projects that we are rolling out, because of the number of projects we do have, we have to employ more skilled laborers as well as those of the semi-skilled area, and our contractors are also building up their workforces to keep up with the schedules that are imposed with us as well to meet the deadlines, notwithstanding the challenges we do have given our projects. But yes, there is a build-up of the labor force.
I think if you just travel around visibly, you'll see much more economic activity outside, and I think that's a good thing. Looking at the country, at 104 million people and growing, scattered over so many islands, I think we really should be thinking, how do we build up 40, good-sized cities, acting as engines of growth for the country. Right now, we're so heavily concentrated on so few places. And you see it in the GDP share of the country is locked in around Metro Manila, a bit of Region 3, a bit of Region 4, about maybe, I think, roughly 2/3 is right there in that core. I think if we begin to consciously target 40 cities outside, that we bring up, because you see the gap from a mega city down to the second and third and fourth city. The orders of magnitude just huge in terms of population and economic activity. So if we concentrated on dispersing it, and I think this is where infrastructure can really play a huge role in job generation and in lowering poverty. This is, I think, truly what inclusive business and inclusive growth looks like, when we disperse opportunities. And it's also good for investors, because then we don't have to look at only 2 or 3 sites for investment sites. Now we're looking in our radar screen maybe at 40 or 50 sites. And that's a good sign when investors start looking at 40 or 50 places. For sure, there will be economic activity and job generation there.